Good evening, everybody. My name is Colin Benini, and I am currently the governor of the great state of Kansas and your host for Power Live. Today, we will explore the ins and outs of the power world from financial takeovers to political struggles. Power Live will show you the true power of information. Alright, everybody, today is an outstanding day in power history, as today we will find out the person who will become. Hold on, let me check just to make sure I'm getting the number right. The person who will become the. Oh, let's figure out this number. Person who will become the 17th president of the United States. The 17th president. Is it going to be Bernie Sanders, governor of Vermont? Is it going to be Don Pablo, former governor of Pennsylvania? Or is it even possibly going to be George Lopez, NUP candidate from the governor from the great state of New Hampshire? So, first off, just to start things off today, we're going to go into the current state of the race. This is before any states have been called. This is strictly based off of polling and off of just different things that we know about all of these states. As you see here, before the election, before any polls close, we see that we have 57 electoral votes that are solidly leaning to the Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders. We have 146 electoral votes which are leaning that way. 146 votes that are likely that way, and then 111 that are likely that way. I mean, that are leaning that way. And if you see right here, if these polls stay what they are right now, we will have a Democratic president in Bernie Sanders. However, we still have those 99 toss-up electoral votes, and who knows? We saw this happen in the past. We saw crazy elections happen where, you know what, just because a state looks like it's going to go one way doesn't mean it's going to go that way. And Don Pablo, or George Lopez for that matter, all they have to do is pick off a couple of these light blue states right here, possibly a Pennsylvania, possibly a New York, a combination of 3 of them or 4 of them, however they need to do it to reach 270. Also, something very interesting we see here is that the state of Nebraska, according to polling, will go, or should go, in favor of George Lopez, the candidate from the National Unity Party. We've had elections where third parties have received electoral votes in the past, but in an election as public and as just kind of out there as this one, that is something very extraordinary. So, like I said, this is the polling before. I'm going to reset this map, and we are going to start looking at states and start making some calls. We do have the Power Live decision desk working behind the scenes to get me all of this information. And as the early polling comes in, we have Power Live exit polls at all of the polling locations today. As a lot of the early returns come in and a lot of the mail-in ballots, as those come in and we start learning some of these demographics and how they're voting, we will be able to call these states for you one at a time until we figure out who reaches that magic number of 270 and who will become the 17th president of the United States. So, first things first, I have the privilege, before I call any states at all, if he will allow me to do so, I believe that I have the privilege to have a short interview with presidential candidate Bernie Sanders.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, okay. So yes, this wasn't planned, but he's a faithful viewer of the show. I thank you for that, Mr. Democratic nominee, Mr. Governor. But I have to tell you, before this election ends and looks like you're going to become, I mean, the polling suggests you're going to become the 17th president of the United States. How do you feel about that?
Feels good, man. Been playing since Power 1. I've been waiting for the. It's kind of like the end goal of the game here.
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, you did play back in Power One. You lived through the presidents of you lived through the presidencies of some very influential people. You have Triple H. You had Foreman Domai were also president back in that time. You know, Chaka Khan, also an outstanding president. You also lived through what some would call the GOP golden age, where you lived through the presidencies of Nicholas Cole and Heydrich, then finally back to FDR for his 4 terms back in Power 3, and then you lived through the presidencies of FDR again, Sandy, Barry Strong, Janet, all those people, and your name looks like it may be added to the list.
Yeah. I was mainly around for the Dem Golden Age where all the presidents were around. I wasn't really around during Power 2 where the GOP held control. Because I quit early on there. But yeah. Got most of that right.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm so happy to have you here. And like I said, I know that it's not really good luck to speculate or anything like that. But do you see this election being a close election? Do you see it being a pretty wide margin for the Democratic Party? What do you think?
Well, if it's true that the GOP has stopped campaigning, which I think they have, that means it's probably going to be a landslide in our favor.
All right, Mr. Nominee. Like I said, thank you again for doing this kind of off-the-cuff interview. I didn't even ask you if you would do it. I kind of just pulled you in here, but thank you so much for giving your words. And do you have any words to the people that are watching? Do you have any words to say, like, if you do become president, what is America gonna look like?
We're going to fix this damn country, that's for sure. We're going to fix the sectors, and we're going to get our military back together.
All
We
right.
almost lost to the Chinese there.
Right. All right, Mr. Possible President-elect. If after the race is called by the Power Live Decision Desk, if you are still available, I would love to get an interview with not only the next president, but at that point the current president-elect of the United States. But I'm gonna let you go. We do have some states to call. We do have some states that are coming in right now. So, like I said, I'm gonna let you go, but I will definitely let you know. Once we make a final call here on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me here.
All right. So you heard it from himself. Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders just came in and gave a bit of an overview of what he thinks this race is going to look like. But without further ado, I have just received word from the decision desk that we do have some states to call here. Polls are starting to close across the United States, and we do have the ability to call some states here. So we're going to start off here. We're getting word that we're going to call some of the solid states for some of the parties here. So we're going to start with the Democratic Party, and we're going to project that Maine, Vermont. Hold on, let me do this. Maine, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, Colorado, and Nevada will all go to the Democratic Party. Put that down there. Like I said, folks, we just project that the states of Maine, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, Colorado, and Nevada will all go to Democratic President Bernie Sanders. We are making these calls based off of Power Live exit polling, early returns, and just how we know the demographics usually go in those states. As you see here, you have a lot of the solid Democratic states like Vermont, like Connecticut, like Maryland and New Jersey. You also have some states that have been considered toss-ups in the past, with Nevada, with Colorado. But like I said, that gives the Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders a decent lead early in the night against the Republican candidate Don Pablo and the NUP candidate George Lopez. We're not finished there. We also are going to officially call the state of Nebraska for the NUP. George Lopez will pick up the 5 electoral votes in Alaska, bringing his total up to 5. Now, we also have some GOP calls to make. The Power Live Decision Desk has projected that the state of Tennessee and the state of Texas will both go red this presidential election. We are also receiving word that although Florida is looking like it is going to go red, it is too early to call that state. So, where that brings us right now is Bernie Sanders with 57 electoral votes, Don Pablo with 49, and George Lopez with all 5 electoral votes from the state of Nebraska. So where does this leave us? You know, you have the state of Texas, probably the biggest GOP stronghold in the United States, going red for Don Pablo. Hold on one second. Okay. But yes. Okay. But yeah, we also have Florida, which is actually still too close to call right now. It is leaning towards the GOP. However, the Power Lab Decision Desk cannot make a call on this yet. We would now like to bring in one of our panelists. We want to bring him in right now, John Cox, Republican from the state of Arizona. Welcome, John. We just got through calling a couple states here in the race. We called 57 electoral votes for Bernie Sanders, another 49 for Don Pablo of the Republicans. So I'm sure that you've been following up on it. How do you think this race is going to go?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so, kind of how I see how this is gonna go is, I think, at least the way the projection is going, Bernie Sanders probably, is looking like he probably will win. We will be, keeping some of our states, like the ones like you say, Texas, probably gonna be one that we're gonna be keeping. And, some of the, southern states as well.
All right. We like I said, those are the states that we called. We did call Texas and Tennessee for the GOP, and Florida is too close to call right now. How do you feel about George Lopez, the NUP candidate, according to our decision desk, winning the state of Nebraska?
Well, I didn't quite expect him to pick up that state, but that is a little surprising, at least on my behalf. But yeah, congratulate. I guess that'll be some for him to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, it always is nice to receive electoral votes in a presidential election. I remember back in Power 5, I had the privilege of being the GOP nominee, and I received a large amount of electoral votes. I actually, at the end of the night, surprisingly, against the polls, I did become the president of the United States. It didn't last too long, as I was then forcibly removed from office. However, the moments that I did spend as president were some of the most, it's one of those moments where once you become the president, it means so much to people, because a lot of these people have been, looking forward their whole lives to this moment, and that when they accomplish it, it is absolutely outstanding for them. However, I am receiving word that we do have the ability. Yes, we do have the ability to make another call. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to officially call the state of Florida for the GOP. The GOP have maintained the state of Florida. So that's another, what is that? That is another 29 electoral votes for Don Pablo. As it stands right now, Bernie Sanders has 57 electoral votes. Don Pablo has 78. And George Lopez has 5. We are getting close to the end of this race here. As of right now, Don Pablo has a lead, but there are a lot of Democratic strongholds that are still out there, that are still going to come in, presumably for the Democratic Party, like the California, like the New York possibly. So we will see this race tighten up as we go down the stretch. But yeah, I believe that this race has the potential to be close, but I believe that as the polling shows, I don't think it's going to be much closer for the GOP than possibly maybe a 330 count for Bernie Sanders, which would leave about, what is that, about 210 for the GOP. That's about as close as I see it happening, but then again, I'm just calling it as we see it here. So we are going to continue updating everyone on these calls, and if anyone has any questions for the panel or wants to be on the panel, please do not hesitate to get into the server and message me, and I will pull you right in here to have a conversation with us. Either way, this is the current state of the race. According to Power, we do have, like I said, Governor Bernie Sanders of Vermont is running against, I'm pretty sure it's former Governor Don Pablo. I'm not sure if he has a seat right now or not. However, Don Pablo has expressed, actually he's been offline for 131 hours, so it doesn't look like Don Pablo is really putting a lot into this race, and also the GOP aren't putting a lot into this race either. So it looks like Bernie Sanders will be the 17th president of the United States, following a term by Alex Jones, which was then tarnished as he got impeached from office. So, like I said, it's actually going to be looking like a Bernie Sanders presidency. And actually, we do have a couple more states to call here. There have been a lot of 503s on the site. However, I'm sure that they will pass as we try to pull up this presidential race for you guys. So John, you're from the state of Arizona. The polling has looked like Arizona will be going to the Democrats, although the Power Live team does have it listed as a toss-up. How do you feel about Arizona? Do you think that your constituents are going to vote for the president, or do you think that they're going to lean more to? I mean, I'm sorry, vote for Bernie Sanders, or do you think that they're going to lean more towards Don Pablo?
Well, looking at the projections right now, I'm thinking there's still a little bit time left. I think it might kind of go towards Don Pablo, but you never know. It might go our way. It might go Bernie Sanders, but it's been consistently GOP for like the longest time. So I guess I got that to say about it.
All right, and I will say one thing. I just received word that we do have a whole new round of calls to make. This time I'm going to start with the GOP. The Power Lab Decision Desk can project that the GOP will win the state of Oklahoma. They also will win the state of Alaska and the state of Georgia. You were talking about Georgia being in the Deep South, being in the area that is usually GOP territory, and it looks like Don Pablo will prevail in that state. Will it be enough? We'll have to see. But just like we gave those states to the GOP, we do have a whole nother slew of states to give to Bernie Sanders, the Democratic nominee. We do believe that Bernie Sanders will win his neighboring home state of New Hampshire. We believe that he will also win his other neighboring home state of Massachusetts. We can also say that Bernie Sanders is doing very well in the Rust Belt region of the United States. He will prevail in the state of Wisconsin and the state of Michigan. Two pretty big prizes that haven't really been considered toss-ups in the past, but in recent elections have been considered toss-ups. We also have Bernie winning in the strong Democratic state of Illinois, where Thomas Jefferson is the governor, a good friend of Bernie Sanders. We also say that Bernie Sanders will prevail in the states of Oregon and Minnesota, two also pretty strong pretty strong Democratic states there. Bernie will also win in the first state of the nation, Delaware, and also in the state of Hawaii. Those are the calls that we have to make for you right now. We do have this to say though: the state of Iowa is leaning towards the Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders, and we should have a call to make in the state of Iowa, in the Hawkeye state, very shortly. And also another state that the decision desk is pondering over right now is the biggest electoral prize of the night, California. Will California go to the Democratic nominee? We shall see. The decision desk says that right now, according to exit polls and according to some early returns there, it does look like a very strong chance Bernie Sanders will prevail in that Democratic state. However, only time will tell, and I will let you know as soon as we get a call in that race. So, John, a lot of states have just been called. Lots and lots of states have been called. So of the states that were just called, a lot of states for the Democrat. How do you? I mean, is this in line with what you expected to happen tonight?
Overall, yeah, it seems like everything is it's going at least how I've been, following and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, that sounds outstanding. So, like I said, we have the electoral count, which is rolling on the bottom of the screen right now. Hold on, let me just put George Lopez's tally up, because like I said, he will win those 5 electoral votes in the state of Nebraska. But there, yeah, the electoral votes, the count's just gonna keep rolling on the bottom of the screen. I also have received word. I've just been contacted I've just been contacted by the Prime Minister of the UK. Theodore Sanders, Prime Minister of the UK, just messaged the show and told me to let President Sanders, or I guess possible President Bernie Sanders, well, from the government of the United Kingdom. He wants to congratulate him on his potential victory that will happen in a few moments, and he also wanted me to mention the detail of how there are now, or how there will be, 2 Sanders that are world leaders. Like I said, that is from Theodore Sanders, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Alright, so, like I said, we just made a big slew of calls here. The Democrat has pulled ahead of the GOP nominee. It does look like Bernie Sanders will prevail in this election. I am not seeing any crazy flips or anything like that yet. The election's going pretty much as all of us had expected it to. As you see, Don Pablo is still sitting at his 1,100 campaign strength. Bernie Sanders and the Democrats are putting a lot more work into this campaign than the GOP has. And it's really showing up on the map, as you see here. Some strong GOP states. There haven't been any strong GOP states that have been called for the Democrats yet. We do see the state of Nebraska, which is usually a strong GOP state, being called for the National Unity Party, which is a little concerning for the GOP, I'm sure. But like I said, none of these really deep red states, like we haven't seen a South Carolina go to the Dems yet. We haven't seen a Mississippi. We haven't seen an Arkansas go over to the Democratic Party. However, I do have to say that it should be a little concerning to the GOP, seeing that although they haven't been called to the Democratic Party, which is a good thing, they also have yet to be called for the GOP, which I think is a bit concerning, especially when you have states like this that usually vote 20-30% in favor of the GOP nominee in usual elections. But again, okay. Alright, the decision desk has just got back to me. They are now comfortable with calling the state of California for Governor Bernie Sanders of Vermont. California's 55 electoral votes puts Bernie Sanders now up to 197 electoral votes. He's closing in. He has less than 100 to go now until Bernie Sanders will be the next president-elect of power. California, it's a big state. It's also a pretty reliable Democratic state. The GOP have won the state of California in the previous elections. Actually, I think I can actually pull this up. I should be able to pull this up, actually. Let's see. Let me go to Alex Jones. Oh, maybe it's not here. I'll have to find it. Presidential elections. I know that there's a page for this, because I've used it before. Alright. Okay, here we go. The 31st presidential election. Oh, no, that's actually this one. That's the one that's happening right now, is the 31st. So we need to go back to the 29th. This was Edric Newhall versus Charlie Chan. We did see that California did remain blue. However, the rest of the nation was very, very, very red. You know, you had the Democrats winning their states, you know, the West Coast, the Colorado, the Minnesota, Vermont and New Hampshire, New Jersey, Maryland. But then you also had the GOP winning certain states like Delaware, like Hawaii, like Illinois, these very Democratic states that the GOP did win back when Edric ran for president. Edric was a very popular candidate among the GOP, a very popular candidate amongst the people of this country, as he received 70 million votes compared to Charlie Chan, who received 45 million, and Huey Long, who received 20 million. If we look at the popular vote in this election right here, we see that Bernie Sanders is even outperforming Edric, one of the most popular presidents of the United States. Bernie is receiving 88 million votes right now, 88 million votes, individual votes, while Don Pablo receives 35 million and George Lopez receives 13 million. So both Don Pablo and George Lopez are underperforming what Charlie Chan and Huey Long performed 2 presidential elections ago, where when Edric did become the president of the United States. But yes, the 31st presidential election is what we're in right now. You know, Bernie Sanders didn't have much of a challenge in the primaries, as you know, Bernie finished with the delegates that he needed to become the nominee. He was endorsed by almost everyone in his party. The Republican Party was a little bit different. Alex Jones was planning on running for re-election. However, he got impeached and exiled just a few hours before the primaries were set to close. So rather than having the GOP run Nancy Pettigrew, a senator from Alaska, they actually, Don Pablo, the vice president, stepped in and took over. George Lopez, the same thing. He ran for president of his own accord, received the delegates he needed. Nothing more to say there. However, as I was talking, I didn't realize we do have another call to make. The Power Live Decision Desk can now project that Governor Bernie Sanders has won the state of Iowa. Now, Iowa's been considered a toss-up in the past. However, more recently, it's been a GOP, pretty much, I wouldn't say a stronghold, but a GOP, like a pretty reliable GOP state. So, that going to the Democrats, although it's not the end of the world for the GOP, it's definitely not ideal for them. Well, like I said, there hasn't been much moving here in the campaign strength. There hasn't been much moving here. The GOP looks like they are conceding this election. I know that Don Pablo has yet to call and concede the election. He's yet to give up the election. However, I believe that he knows what's happening. There has been a little bit of movement in the campaign strength for Don Pablo. He's went up about 15 campaign strength, so somebody's printing out some flyers and handing them out to their neighbors, it seems like. But yeah, John, the state of Iowa, like I said, it's not a GOP stronghold like Texas. However, it is widely considered to be a GOP state, you know. So the fact that it went over to the Democrat, should that be concerning to the GOP for future elections, or do you think it's kind of just that Bernie Sanders is just so like the GOP kind of gave this up early, so it's not really such a big deal?
Well, at least when it comes to Iowa, Well, yeah, Iowa has been, from time to time, a good, reliable GOP state, but at least what's going on with, I guess you could say, like, with what Bernie has been campaigning and stuff like that, it's just been, he was able to sway the voters there. I guess he might have done something that that maybe we weren't able to accomplish, but it's certainly something to learn from. I'll say the least.
All right. Also, while, like I said, Bernie is not the president-elect of the United States yet. We haven't been able to call that officially. However, let's take a look at the national politicians list right now. You see, the most influential national politician in the land is Charlie Chan. Well, actually, hold on. He has 782. Pablo may have more than that. Let me just check. Okay, now Pablo has fallen off quite a bit. But yeah, so Charlie Chan is the most influential national politician in the land. He is a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is the third most. You have Otto von Fuckface of the GOP in second. If Bernie Sanders wins this election, and he is able to appoint a vice president and possibly even appoint a cabinet that does get confirmed, is this the end of this iteration for the GOP? Will they be able to bounce back? Because if Bernie gets the presidency, his NI gain is going to be through the roof, and you would think that he would run for another term. After he runs, you could possibly see, Charlie Chan maybe run again. If not him, you still have Bill A. Buster could run, Amy Klobuchar, Sam Bakshi, all these people, depending on who gets the vice presidency and whose NI gain and power gain is the highest, you could see Bernie Sanders pass it off to someone who has more NI than everyone. And then, after that you get the presidency, you have the momentum, you have the money, you have the power gain, you have the NI gain. Is this the end of this iteration for the GOP?
Well, I mean, that's something that I can't really predict. I think we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Alright, like I said, a nation in scandal is perhaps what you could say brought this on to this presidential election, because Alex Jones was set to win a second term. He was set to be the 16th president of the United States for a second term, with Pablo following him after that. However, you have the scandal where Alex Jones gets impeached for exploiting different parts of the game. You have the GOP leadership being called out by Democrats and the NUP alike for different things, whether they be personal attacks, whether they be alting, whether it be exploits, stuff like that. The GOP were in control, and then they fell under a large amount of scandal, which brought them down to where I believe they, it pretty much brought them down to where I believe it brought them into a position where they couldn't contest this presidential election, because they didn't have, people weren't enthusiastic about the GOP anymore. The GOP became a stagnant party. Their leaders started quitting and defecting. But, it's just, the scandal kind of brought down the GOP, I think. Did I have something to do with that? Possibly. I reported what happened. I reported the news. But I like to think that it was more than just me, because, it's a nation. The nation votes. The 90 million people vote. I can't take credit for the 90 million people almost that are voting for Bernie Sanders. I can only take credit for what the truth that I portrayed, and the truth that hopefully reached some of those 90 million that switched over from the GOP to the Democratic Party. But I can say it is now 12:10 p.m. on the East Coast, and we do have another round of projections to make. The Power Live Decision Desk can now project that the state of South Dakota will go to the GOP, the state of Idaho will go to the GOP, and the state of South Carolina will go to the GOP. Along with this, the Power Live Decision Desk can project that the state of New Mexico will go to the Democratic Party. The state of... Okay, we actually have a couple big calls to make right here. New Mexico, like I said, you can say that New Mexico is a very... you can say it leans Democrat, so that's not really a big of a surprise, but these next couple may be quite a surprise. The Power Live Decision Desk can project that Wyoming will go to Bernie Sanders. North Dakota will go to Bernie Sanders. Alabama will go to Bernie Sanders. Mississippi will go to the governor from Vermont. And one more, we can also project that Kansas will go to Bernie Sanders. And also, we have received word that although Washington is leaning towards the Democratic Party, it is to be said that apparently, according to what we've received so far, it looks like Governor Bernie Sanders is receiving quite a challenge from NUP nominee George Lopez in that state. So that state is, as of right now, too close to call. However, it's too early to call. Not necessarily too close, but it looks like George Lopez is definitely overperforming in the state of Washington. So we will get back to that. But John, a pretty big bombshell was just dropped. It wasn't just one, it wasn't just two. 5 strong, reliable GOP states have just went to the Democrats. The states of Wyoming, North Dakota, Kansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. That's not like in Iowa that's considered a swing state. Those states have voted GOP pretty much in every election to date. So what can you say? What does that mean for the GOP, and what does that mean for the future?
Well, seeing this happen, in the past, I've always been one to kind of see how read the tea leaves and stuff like that, so to speak, about how things are going to go with the upcoming election. I usually do keep track of this kind of stuff, and I don't know. I think maybe the whole thing that was going on back with Alex Jones, maybe that might kind of be the cause of why a lot of these states that used to be reliably GOP, they're kind of going this way, at least this round,
Right. Like I said, I think that the distaste that Alex Jones brought to the presidency and to his term possibly could be one of the reasons that the nation has flipped so drastically. Like I said, in the previous presidential election, we saw over 380 electoral votes go to the GOP. This time, we may even see over 380 electoral votes go towards the Democratic Party. A huge, huge flip like that in just one term. So, like I said, Bernie Sanders is nearing that mark of 270. He is 35 electoral votes away. And you look at what's on the table. Like I said, Washington still on the table. That's 12. Like I said, that's leaning to Bernie Sanders. However, George Lopez is putting up quite a fight in that state. You have New York, a big, big prize of 29. Pennsylvania, an also equally large prize of 20. Both of those states going to Bernie Sanders would be the end of the race. However, you also see states like North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, states like that, just a couple of those put together would also be enough for Bernie Sanders. I don't know. It's very, very close to Bernie Sanders becoming the president-elect of the United States. According to Power, the election is happening right now, everybody. The election is happening. This is going on. We are about to find out who will be the next president. This next round of projections could very well put Bernie Sanders over the edge. And like I said, the reason why we haven't been able to call a lot of these other deep red states like Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, Utah, Arizona is because Montana as well. That's because Bernie Sanders is performing very well in these areas, and although they aren't super strong Democrat areas either, it it's very concerning to it should be very concerning to the GOP that these states aren't being called in their favor just yet. Actually, it should be concerning to them because according to what we see here, it doesn't look like any of these states will be going over to the GOP unless something changes drastically in the next 5 or 10 minutes. But like I said, we're waiting for some more calls here. John, like I said, there's a lot of states outstanding. I don't know if you're looking at the stream or not, if you can see what I have pulled up. But like I said,
I'm looking at it.
okay, there are a lot of states outstanding right now. Do you believe, like, what states do you believe are going to be called, you know, shortly, that will possibly give Bernie Sanders the presidency?
Well, I'm thinking probably the state of probably New York is probably going to go his way. Possibly Washington. But like you said, Washington is it's kind of close right now. We'll see what happens. Maybe George Lopez will be picking that one up. So yeah, probably New York, maybe Virginia. We'll see.
Yeah, it says right here, if we look in Washington, the reason why this state is not yet being called is because the National Unity Party have almost 70% PSO in the state of Washington, whereas the Democrats have only about 20%. So although the campaign strength is a large difference, the PSO difference we could see possibly having an effect down the stretch if George Lopez were to campaign or if something like that were to happen. That's why we're not calling that state yet. I didn't do what I think I just did I? Okay, no, they kept it there. I accidentally hit refresh. But it's still there, everyone. Don't worry about that one bit. Anyway, like I said, the election, the last polls are closing across the nation. And we do have another projection here. I just got word that Bernie Sanders has won the state of Ohio. Bernie Sanders has won the bellwether state of Ohio. It's always been said no member of the GOP has won the White House without winning Ohio. And it looks like Ohio will be going to the Democratic Party. I think that may be the last effort that the GOP had. In order to win the presidency at this point, they have to win nearly every state left on the board, and I just don't see it happening. However, like I said, you never know. But like I said, it's definitely looking a lot like it's definitely a lot easier of a road for Governor Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Like I said, he's up to 253. He needs 17 more electoral votes to win the presidency. And that's really close. It looks like he will be the president. But like I said, we haven't called it yet. I don't believe that other news networks have called it yet either. As you see, although the election is happening right now, it is not over yet. There is still a possibility for something. Don Pablo has just went up in campaign strength, about 400 campaign strength. So someone is campaigning for Don Pablo. Someone is trying to push him over the edge. I'm going to refresh again to see if it's still continuing to go up. Now it looks like it's bottoming out there. It was at 1,169 earlier. Now it's at 1,500. So someone is voting for Don Pablo. And actually, we do have another projection. Arkansas, a state that we believed was going to go to the Democratic Party, has just been flipped into the GOP's column. So that's 6 more electoral votes for the GOP. Will it be much of a difference? I'm not sure if it will be or not. However, that is another state that the GOP may be able to pick up. Like I said, but other than that, it looks like things are stagnating a little bit. It looks like the GOP's last-ditch effort to win the state of Arkansas may be just that, to win the state of Arkansas. I don't believe that it will flip the race. But we are waiting here. Only one state could do it now. The Pennsylvania. That's all it takes. The Pennsylvania, and Bernie Sanders is the president. The New York, and Bernie Sanders is the 17th president of the United States. a combination of any more states could also get him there. Like I said, John, you're from Arizona. Arizona is still their results are still outstanding. Let's actually take a closer look at the state of Arizona. Arizona, you have the PSO is kind of a chalked up between all three. You have the NUP at 48, you have the GOP at 34, and the Democrats at 17. However, it is still leaning Democrat at this point. We are receiving some more returns, of course, throughout the night. There are a couple precincts in areas like Phoenix and areas like Flagstaff that are a little bit more Democratic leaning, because they are in more of an urban setting. However, we cannot yet call the state of Arizona for Bernie Sanders or Don Pablo. You being, hold on. You being the, I know you were the former, wait, what are you? Senator. Being senator from Arizona, it must be a little concerning to see that, the people that are voting in this election for Bernie Sanders are going to be the people that have to vote for your re-election campaign. Do you believe that you'll get reelected in a state like Arizona that may possibly go towards the Democrat? Or is it must be a little concerning?
Yeah, no, it is. At least as far as regards with that, maybe there might be a little bit challenge with a few different demographics and here and there, but I think there might have a chance to regarner the people's trust as far as that, because I have been sitting as a senator there for many terms, so I believe that people believe that I'm a strong candidate. I'm a candidate. A strong senator. Sorry. And I usually have, always have done what the constituents have always have wanted me to do. So we'll see what happens. But yeah.
As you were talking, the decision desk has just made another call. The decision desk can now project that Governor Bernie Sanders will win the state of Washington. Bernie Sanders will fend off George Lopez's attack in the state of Washington and will maintain the Democrats' 12 electoral votes there. That now brings Governor Bernie Sanders up to 265 electoral votes. 5 electoral votes away from the presidency. That's something as simple as picking off a West Virginia, one of the largest, I would say one of the deepest red states ever. You have West Virginia that votes sometimes 45% in favor of the GOP nominee. However, it is still outstanding at this time, and it looks like it will go towards Bernie Sanders if things don't change quickly, and that's all it takes. All of these states, whether that be the Missouri, the Louisiana, the Kentucky, these deep red states that are still outstanding, they're not still outstanding because they aren't still outstanding because it's too close to call. They're too outstanding because the Democrat is overperforming that the decision desk doesn't have the ability to call it yet, because this is very different from what we're used to seeing. And like I said, could this election redraw the lines in this country, redraw the toss-up states? Maybe it will. Maybe the new toss-up states will be the states like the Arkansas, like the South Carolina, like the South Dakota. States that are usually deep red may now be the new toss-ups, because the blue wave is rolling through, and as of right now, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to stop it. But yes, like I said, 5 electoral votes away. All it takes is one more call. And like I said, the decision desk is working around the clock to try to get these calls for you. We are right there. We are right on the edge of a Bernie Sanders presidency. We are right on the edge of the 17th president of the United States. John, this is going to be a historic day for the Democratic Party, a historic day for Governor Bernie Sanders, a veteran of power who has yet to achieve the office of the presidency, but it looks like he may do that today. Do you have anything you would like to say if to President-elect Bernie Sanders if he is elected?
Well, I wish him the best. If he wins.
Well, like I said, we're going to get these calls very shortly. So who do you believe is going to be the next GOP nominee, John?
Well, I actually I'm quite unsure of like who that would be, at least of right now. Maybe later on in the next election cycle we'll be able to figure out who that would be.
All right. Like I said, we are waiting for this crucial moment where a call can be made to the call can be made. Also just a little amusing point. Governor Bernie Sanders is now on the screen. Has changed his look, has changed his gimmick here. I don't know if that's a shot at the GOP, if that's a shot at Pablo, whatever it is. But like I said, at this point, Bernie Sanders has all right to do so because it looks like he will become the next president of the United States. Like I said, we will keep you up. And now Bernie Sanders is George Lopez, it looks like. So, like I said, Bernie's having some fun. I'm glad to see that this election hasn't taken too much out of him, that he's still able to joke around and be who he is. But like I said, we're waiting for this final call, this final opportunity, this thing to come out. Hold on. And I think we have just had it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Power Live Decision Desk has called the states of New York and Pennsylvania for Bernie Sanders. This means that Bernie Sanders is the 17th president of the United States. Bernie Sanders, according to the Power Live Decision Desk, will be the next president. This is just outstanding. It looks like Bernie will take New York and Pennsylvania. He is now at 314 electoral votes. So that's all he needs to win the presidency. And what a turnaround we've seen. We had an election just a week ago. An election that we had, or 2 weeks ago rather, where we saw Alex Jones win by a similar margin over the nominee. I believe the nominee was, I'm not sure who the nominee was for the Democratic Party, but he won in a similar margin. And today, it looks like Bernie is going to flip the script and win in a similar margin. It's just, like I said, it's a massive flip. And I believe that Bernie Sanders will win some of these states, like Indiana, like Missouri, like Montana. They are too close to call right now, but it looks like he will prevail in those states, giving him a total of about 407 electoral votes, a massive amount of electoral votes. 404 rather, which is just an outstanding amount. So, like I said, the Power Live Decision Desk has officially called this race. Bernie Sanders will be the 17th president of the United States. He will win the 31st presidential election. And actually, now that we have called the race, John, I would like to thank you for being on the panel, but we are about to have an interview with the president-elect himself. So I'm going to let you go, but then again, thank you for being here. Your insights were quite outstanding and very insightful, I would have to say, and we would love to have you back on the show some other time.
Oh, it's no problem. I do like to I do like to say one more thing before I go.
Go ahead, John. You have the floor.
Hold on.
Take your underwears off. Now sit on Uncle Bernie's lap. That's right. Sit on my apple.
Alrighty. Thank you again, John. Alright, and we are now bringing in the president-elect, Bernie Sanders. Mr. President-elect, Power Live has just called this election in your favor. We still have a couple of states that are outstanding. However, we have called enough states to give you this election and give you the presidency. How do you feel right now, Mr. Sanders?
I feel absolutely great. Like I said earlier, it's kind of the end goal of the game to become president, is it not?
Bernie, I can agree with you so much. Even for the 24-hour period that I became president back in Power 5, like, like you said, that was the end goal, and even though it didn't stay, even though apparently, according to some people, it wasn't, I wasn't a true president, just being in the shoes of the president, being able to send that first presidential address, being able to take a screen cap of it saying President Colin Benini, you being able to do the same thing, President Bernie Sanders, it, like I said, that is the end game for a lot of these people, and you have just achieved it. One thing though, this is very concerning for the GOP. They've lost a lot of ground in a lot of states that were probably going that many considered to be some of their more like likely, like some of their stronger states that they have lost in this election. In elections going forward, like I said, I'm not going to speak for you, but I would assume that you would run for a second term as president. I don't know who the GOP could put against you at this point that would even have a chance, because the map is so blue. It would take it would take an even larger scandal, I believe, to bring down your presidency, but I can't see it happening. I mean, you see 85 million people are casting votes for you, versus 38 million for Pablo and about 13 million for George Lopez. So, you know, that means something. 85 million Americans saying the same thing definitely means something. So, do you believe that the Democratic Party is going to be able to take control of this iteration?
As of right now, we do control the Senate, and we do have a voting coalition with the NUP. We'll be able to take control, I believe, if the GOP doesn't come back up. But the main contender for the next presidential race, as it looks, is going to be Otto von Fuckface, as they've entered the Republican primaries.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Otto von Fuckface has entered the Republican primary, and if we do look at the page of national politicians right now, you can see that although he is above you at this point, after a term of your presidency, your NI will be much higher than his.
Yeah.
And also, you know, whoever you appoint to be vice president will have their NI increased. Whoever you appoint to the cabinet will have their NI increase. I don't like, and obviously you wouldn't appoint Otto von Fuckface, so I don't see how he could even closely compete with the NI. So it would come down to PSO, which, as it looks like right here, you know, you have states like Missouri that start off 100%, you know, GOP in PSO, that are now, you know, leaning Democrat in PSO. So, like I said, this is just an outstanding. This is just an amazing election. We haven't seen anything like it in quite a while, and I'm sure that you feel wonderful about what's happening.
Yes. Surprising matter, actually. I entered the primary when it first began, doubting I was going to have a chance of winning, as Alex Jones was the president at the time, and he had not been deleted. So I thought I was going to lose overwhelmingly due to his NI advantage.
But then, you know,
joining.
But then, like I said, I think that all of this comes down to a nation in scandal. Alex Jones being impeached, GOP leadership being questioned, the party falling apart. That all you can't point to a singular explanation as to why this happened. However, you can definitely look at reasons, you know, at different reasons as to why things happen. Now that you're here, I would like to do something else. The Power Lab Decision Desk can call a few more states here. Power Lab Decision Desk has called the state of North Carolina for you, Mr. President-elect. They have also called the state of Arizona, the state of Utah, the state of Montana, the state of Indiana, the state of Missouri, Louisiana, Kentucky.
Wow.
And that is all. The only two states that are left outstanding right now are Virginia and West Virginia. Those are the two states that we don't feel comfortable calling yet. But that's a whole nother slew of states. That's 386 electoral votes that you've just received. That's, you know, along with the 85 million people who have voted for you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the other Dems that helped me build the PSO to flip these certain states. You've been working on that vigorously to gain even more of an advantage.
Alright, and like I said, it's absolutely outstanding to see someone so just like selfless and morally right in the office of the presidency. like, so domestically, you were talking about how there's a voting coalition and how the Democrats are going to work together with the NUP to make the
Mhm.
country a better place. What is the United States' foreign goal going to be for your term? Like, are you going like what are you going to do? Who are you going to try to make allegiances with other countries? Are you going to try to, like what is the foreign goal for the United States?
Well, first of all, I hope to re-enter the United Nations, which Adrian, the former Secretary of State, took us out of. If we could rejoin the United Nations, we'll have free trade with other countries. But that will all go to plan if we do not get any vetoes from Russia or China on the Security Council. Other than that, we'll try to be at peace until we have a positive budget. And yeah,
All right. Well, Bernie, thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations again on being president. I assume that you heard the good wishes that Prime Minister Theodore Sanders sent you from the UK.
yes,
Um,
the two Sanders, as he calls it.
yes, the two Sanders, two world leaders, the two Sanders. Like I said, again, congratulations. You fought a tough campaign. You did a lot of campaigning, a lot of boots on the ground, a lot of grassroots campaigning, and you know what? You got people out to vote. Mandatory voting wasn't the only thing that got people out to vote. It was also, your individual volunteers. It was a movement because, like I said, a lot of people turned away from the GOP after the scandal, and it looks like, because when Ed ran for the presidency, he received. Hold on, let me see how many votes he received. I forget.
Was it the 29th election?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, here it is. Ed received 70 million votes.
Yeah.
And the GOP nominee is now receiving 38 million. So that's at least
Huge
20.
turnaround.
That's at least 22 million people that voted for the GOP nominee that is now voting for either you or the NUP nominee. 22 million people. That's a lot of people. And that's a lot of people who support you. 85 million is a lot of votes to receive in any election. But 85, like I said earlier, 85 million people in America saying the same thing, voicing the same opinion. It must be a strong one. And, and hopefully your presidency will be strong. I wish you good health. I wish you luck, because it is a tough job, as, I'm sure you've heard. But, like I said, I believe that America will come together, will unify behind you.
Yes.
Like I said, the majority of America has already voted for you. So, like I said, again, just the last thing. Congratulations, Mr. Sanders. The states of West Virginia and Virginia look like they will be called for the Democratic Party. We just cannot call them just yet. But at this point, it doesn't matter. You are already the president-elect, and I'm sure that your inauguration will come within the hour, and you will take
Thank you.
over the duties of the president. But then again, like I said, congratulations, and I wish you
Thank
luck.
you.
I wish you luck, Mr. Sanders.
Yeah. God bless the United States.
All right. Everyone, that was the president-elect, Bernie Sanders. He will be the 17th president of the United States, winning the 31st presidential election in quite an outstanding fashion. It looks like the final tally will be 404 to 126 to 5. And it looks like he will become the next president of the United States by a large margin. He said it himself, he wants to unify the United States behind him and his presidency. He wants to work with the National Unity Party to get things passed, to make America the strongest it can be. And when it comes to foreign policy, he wants to re-enter the United Nations, and he wants to create peace among nations across the world and try to do what he can to keep the United States strong on a global level and keep our allies strong as well. And since this is over, that is going to conclude this special broadcast of Power Live, this Election Day special. We hope that all of you that are watching right now and all of you that see this, the recording of this, will join us next time as we continue to expose the true power of information. Have a great night, everybody.